Oh, you like to play dangerous.
No, well, we didn't want somebody like going, oh, I'm going to connect that network while they're doing the demo.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Do you have an HDMI connection? Or do you use mini? Where is your connector? Where's your, oh, there it is. I just didn't see it up here. I was looking back there. Oh, you're welcome. Check your slides.
Well, I just want to make sure my router's up.
Okay. I want to make sure we can see your slides over there. Or your screen.
Oh, it's up.
Ski boy, is it good? You see his screen?
I,
All right. Good. All right. Party on.
uh-oh. No, when you said good luck. That was briefly my son's nickname for a reason.
Right after he was first born. Let's do the slide. Let me see if this is working. Since this has been a failure point, it's been this mobile device.
All right.
Good. I'll just put this to the side for when I need to keep it on the mobile. Let me just make sure all the services are running. Oh, I see it. Thank you. Let me plug the clicker in, I guess. Oh. Let's see. Where are our slides? Slides. Here we go. Yeah, okay. I was just verifying it's gonna do the slideshow thing. Back. Wanted to start. Alright. Yeah. Alright. Doesn't seem to want to show the start slide, but no. It doesn't really matter, I guess. But this is working, so. I have no drink. I'm good, I think. minute. We're all set. Actually, let me verify one more thing before we do this.
Oh, yeah. Actually, yeah, let me check to make sure we're connected on that too. Oops. Oh, you can? All right. Go ahead. Yeah. I believe we were connected on that about 120. Or one, you're right, 140. I was thinking 140, but I was saying 120. Oh. Yeah, it's not coming up for me. Again, I still might have that set up for like dumb CTF stuff. Whoops. And your guys just set this stuff up because I don't know how to do that with it. I'll start getting into it here. It just took a while. That happens. I think I set this up for something dumb. Oh, okay.
So yeah, you can reach the basic server.
I just figured I'd set it up goofy for like a CTF or something and never change it back. All right, well, I guess we're ready.
We should probably verify this is working. All right.
Hear you.
Well, they might not be able to hear without the microphone. I think it doesn't record without it, right? Yeah, I think so. Okay.
Are we just going to sit there, or do we have a one we walk around with? We just have the one mic?
Yeah, we'll just have to switch off, I guess.
Nope.
Alright, so. Are you guys ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay.
There's so many people.
Yeah, it is a little intimidating. But I'm Nancy.
I'm Phoenix.
And this is our talk on the DAM Vulnerable Habit Helper IoT device. And so first, how this talk is organized, we're going to do an introduction that says why we came up with this. Then we'll do a demo of how the device would work if you were an actual user, which we'll be referring to in some of the other things. But as it's a device that's supposed to help you with your bad habits, just word of warning, don't use it to actually fix your bad habits. I just made it up. So it shouldn't work. If it does, coincidental.
Give us a lot of money if you kick your heroin habit from this.
Then we'll briefly look at the architecture, and then how you can set up and use this at home or at work. And then we'll go through some methodology with a few tips. And then we'll do live hardware hacking. We hope to get a volunteer from the audience to come up and do a very basic piece of hardware hacking, so hopefully someone who's never done it before. So we'll ask at the time. And then we'll do some contact info and questions.
And then, as far as the hardware hacking part, we're just going to basically interface with the device. So it's not anything that intimidating. And which will I click on this? Which I click to make it do something? There we go. All right, so basically, my wife has actually spoken at DerbyCon before a few years back, and she's spoken at a variety of InfoSec conventions. Anyhow, we've been doing these for years. I was interested in trying to do something like that. I've learned a lot of things from the community. I wanted to do something to, you know, kind of give back and everything. So what we did last year, we decided to do a talk on IT security. For our demonstration, what we did was we set up an IoT methodology, and then we used an example device to explain what we did to you know, test the security on the device. We selected a baby monitor. We went through a couple of things. They sell a bunch of really weird Internet of Things stuff. But at the time, we were about to have our kid, and all this stuff was telling us to buy a baby monitor. Now, it was less than secure. And the problem is that, as you can tell from this next part, we tried to do, the talk was excellent. We spoke, initially we spoke at NOLACon. It's a smaller con that they do in New Orleans. I'm mostly mentioning it just because it's smaller and not a lot of people are aware of it. Also, since it's New Orleans, you have better food options. It's a lot like this, but it's smaller and a lot more social. Anyhow, we got a lot of really great feedback. Everything went really awesome. The problem was that we had some inherent problems since we were using a device we just bought off Amazon. We tried to do disclosure stuff. The problem was that between the time I'd set this up and the time that we had actually spoke, the company had changed names either 5 or 6 times.
Not fixing any of the problems in between.
They didn't even have an auto email. They didn't even have an auto response saying, "Hey, we got an email from you." So I mean, I just was never able to initiate any sort of contact with the people. You know, and we didn't really want to go into what was going on after that because of responsible disclosure rules. But it was really entertaining streaming Hellraiser through a baby monitor. One thing that we also did for part of the talk was that we actually did hardware hacking on the device. That's how I was getting BIOSes and messing with some of the stuff. People were really, really intimidated by it, but, you know, as I'm about to point out, it was really easy. Yeah. I sort of have a theory about this, that a lot of people psych themselves out that they can't do this stuff. The fact you're here right now indicates that you're willing to learn how to do things. Most of the stuff you just have to sort of be careful about what you're doing. So, I mean, it's something that we wanted to do to make things more accessible. We had decided, since we got a lot of awesome feedback and everything last year, that we wanted to expand on this. The initial idea I had was I was going to basically do like a game show, and I was going to hand people soldering irons and have them actually hardware hack things while we were doing the talk. Like I would try to walk people through that had no idea how to do any of this stuff, like how to, you know, solder things into devices and access ports and such. After about 30 seconds, I realized that some InfoSec conventions have a lot more alcohol than others, and that handing random people soldering irons and just turning them loose, it would be an awesome talk, but it probably wouldn't be the best idea. So I was trying to think, what could I do that would be, you know, enlightening and just as dumb, and came upon, why don't we do a bunch of live demos? But actually, the hardware part, coming up with the hardware device was her idea, but, you know, it was just the whole idea of like trying to do like 5 or 6 live demos in one talk because, you know, nothing bad ever happens during live demos.
So yes, we do have a lot of live demos. I hope they're all going to work. We'll see. If they don't, we'll jiggle some wires and try a few things, but I have everything seems to be working. We've done this several times, had lots of problems, and we fixed a ton of things, which is why we're like using our own router, because we had a captive portal at one conference, and our IoT device couldn't connect, among other things. So, all right. Also, another reason we did this, I just wanted to say, was this is like the same idea as like OWASP WebGoat or that sort of thing, except with a device. So, and this is, if you want to make it look pretty, you could do something like this for our device. It's really just a button sort of thing. But yeah, we're going to be demoing on the breadboard devices we have down there, which are easier to access the hardware.
Yeah, it's easier for people to connect to them because you just have to stick it in the hole.
All right.
A lot of knowing size there.
Yes, dear. All right. So now we're going to do a demo of the device in action. In this, there's a web app, a mobile app, there's some services running in the background, and the actual hardware running various scripts, all working together here. So the first step is to register, and for things that can be done on both the web and the mobile app, I'm preferring the web app because I think it'll be easier for people to see. All right, so let's register a user first thing because that has to happen first. Like many IoT devices, you have to make an account and then you pair your device when you're logged into that account. I like the drop down to Sinister Beekeeper here. This isn't my normal machine.
What type of asshole raises bees?
All right, so I chose the username DerbyCon. Let's see, password 1234. Best password ever. Yay. Our bad habit, unless anyone has a really good one, I'm going with stealing pumpkins. Yes. I'm caught on there. Okay. And then you have a question, but they nicely fill it in for you and answer, so we'll just go with that.
You're going to be getting a lot of interesting emails on it.
I don't see why, but okay. So we log into our account, and maybe we should have read the About page before we logged in, but now we have an account. Let's go back and see how Habit Helper works. So tell me, how does Habit Helper work? Here we go. So it works in several ways. So first, if you're feeling desperate, there's live chat with a therapist. The discussion boards are there for less desperate times. I wrote this and it makes me laugh, so sorry. Please click the Habit Resisted button when you have successfully resisted your bad habit, and you'll get an awesome image to view, and it will put up your score on the scoreboard. But to keep things even, the scoreboard only will count your first 23 clicks every day, so no one feels too bad. All right, so that's how it works. And if anyone wants to know about the company, it was founded by Lizzie Hayden in 2014, who struggled with addiction to chocolate chip cookies for 20 years and has now been clean for 90 days. So she advises taking everything one day at a time and remembering no matter how bleak things look, there's always a way forward. All right, let's go back to our account. And, oh, one more thing I will show here on the main page. I did this to simulate a side channel, so it's supposed to be simulating your side channel. So if we, I liked it. So it says you have a new email up here, and this is supposed to be simulating sending you an actual email.
Oh.
What? Although it seems to be blocking the pop-up, your browser. Well.
What type of jerk installed ad blockers?
Yeah.
Do a pause on the side.
Let's see. Yeah. If it doesn't work, then that's just one tiny piece of the demo, but theoretically a modal should appear there. We'll just say if that piece isn't working on this browser, it was probably not tested thoroughly on every browser. No. That's all right. You could probably find it in the source code for the page, I have a feeling. We could see the link it created. Yes, I see it. You can reset your password by following this link. So, we did create it if we wanted to. Obviously, that's not how it's meant to happen. But this is one of those 5 demos sort of things. Okay.
Sorry for the iPod.
No problem. So let's now go back to the account, look at a few more things, and then I'll pull out the mobile device and we'll sync the device and use the device. I've actually already paired my phone with the device on the Bluetooth, but because I wanted to make sure it was working.
Sometimes it can take like 5 to 10 minutes, and we didn't want to just be sitting here waiting while it was doing it, so we went ahead and did it while everybody's coming in.
Okay. So there's today's scoreboard, which was mentioned, and we can see there's several other people on here. You can get a list of scores. There's a simulated resist button, but they strongly suggest you use your physical button because it'll produce more dopamine, or so I made up. But if we click it here, it'll say, give us a uplifting image. So then there's just the therapist, who is a bit of a joke. Somebody here will recognize this. Let's see. Yes. So I modified her a bit from the original. She now has some Buddhist sayings and things. But yes. So that's my joke. And then there's a forum board with all the normal forum things. You can look at posts or write a new post, etc. All right, so I think it's time to, yes, let's see. So yeah, all the normal things. He's doing better at not feeding animals when there's a sign saying not to. Thank you, Habit Helper. Let me get off the mobile device. So unfortunately, the thing I'm using to show the mobile app through the screen will occasionally display ads. I'm sorry, I don't know of one that doesn't.
Well,
If anyone does, you can email me.
You have to give them money otherwise, and
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just going to talk while she's doing this. But yeah, the way that Nancy set this up, you can basically take your mobile device, use the Bluetooth pairing on it, pair with the device, and it'll enter the Wi-Fi credentials into the device itself. So you don't have to set. You can do it totally headlessly there.
All right, so I'm already logged in on this device, so let me go back to the main portal. Come on. I had a log out or something. Oh, here, good. So we'll log in as our new user, DerbyCon. And if it will let me, let's see. I suppose it doesn't matter who I'm logged in as to do this. I think I added a way to, oh, that's the log out button. It was down there sort of hidden. Sorry. I remembered adding one, so. All right.
You changed to a phone with a smaller screen, that's why you didn't see it.
Yeah, I broke the phone I used last time to demo this, and it was bigger. So maybe I need to redo the mobile app a bit so it works on all phones. So this isn't a properly tested production thing that'll work great on everything. Really? I did.
You notice I didn't tell you that.
All right.
You
See,
did it wrong again.
really?
Yeah. Yeah. You keep getting to be wrong.
Let me just, I will eventually log in, and then we can sync the device. Does that look right? All right, so to sync the device, the other options are all basically the same as online, so there's really no reason to look at them, although, I mean, you can just see, we can see that we clicked our button once there. Is the config. And if you're already auto-paired with the device, and we have set it up to, the device will auto-pair any Bluetooth. So it's very insecure in that. Anything can Bluetooth connect to it.
Yeah, it's set up to auto-accept any connections.
So, but you can use this to configure the, that's just a warning because obviously people should know if they're going to try to use it. But yes, I'm already paired with it. And if I want to set up the network connection on the device, I'm not sure which one is it. It's the yellow one. But yeah. I can just enter in our SSID and password, which I'm
Not going to do
because I've already done it. And yes, and it is, I think it does actually show the password, or does it?
And people
Yeah.
will log into our thing.
Yeah, it will actually show the password, and I've already done this, so I'm not going to show it. Last time I did this talk, I accidentally showed my phone password on screen.
It wasn't for a phone she was using, but we've had people like log into routers and stuff, and I just don't want to deal with that while we're trying to talk.
And yeah, this would be for the router, so yeah. So we're going to say that's already done, and then you'd hit this other configure IoT device, which that button, after you've got the wireless set up, will set up the user who's logged in on the device so that it knows what user you are. And it should just return like a toast in a moment that says it's set up. Or, I wonder, I did hit the button.
That's right where you crack the screen, isn't it?
Yeah, I did crack the screen there, yes. I'm really hard on devices, but, all right, well, we can see if it's set up by pressing the button. I meant the button of that, but then we can look at the screen here, and yeah, go ahead and press it, and I will go back to the scoreboard here, and we'll see if we got an update, in which case we know it worked. If I can ever get this stupid thing to... Here we go. Okay. And we have 2 clicks. So yay, it worked. All right. And I also got a nice image on my phone to make me feel enthused. So that's the whole idea of how the app works. All right. So back to slides. And sorry that took a little longer than I would have liked. A bit of architecture. So basically, we did want to try to have all the parts that NIST defined in their SP 800-183. And also, we looked at their draft InterGC report 8200 afterwards. We'd started this before that was out, actually. But so, and also we wanted it to be like a normal IoT device, which has this cute little setup with an IoT device, the web app, cloud services, and a mobile app. So basically, yes, we have our sensor, which is our button, our aggregator. These are the things that NIST defined, which is going to be the scripts running on the hardware. Our communication channel is the network and Bluetooth. Our external utility is the mobile or web app, and the decision trigger is the thing that updates the score and shows you the awesome picture. So that's how we fit in those standards. And now,
Whoops, I'm going backwards. Now, in terms of when we set this up, I was in charge of setting up the hardware end of this. What we wanted to do was, since it was going to be an inherently insecure device, we didn't want to have anything that had like cameras or like microphones, things of that nature on them. I don't really want to see anyone pooping. But so that was kind of a concern. So and that's kind of what led us to do a basic internet button. So in terms of the goal, though, I wanted to find something that was cheap for people, potentially something you might already have, because that would be even better, and then something that would be consistent in terms of the manufacturer or the version. So if you had problems and you sent me an email, I knew what you were talking about. Instead of trying to guess, oh, well, do you have this board or this board or this board? Now, the first thing I was going to do were the Amazon, they had those dash buttons that they could do. Problem is that somebody at Amazon hates fun, and they decided to start ultrasonically welding the plastic together. So you actually have to cut the cases to get them open. And I didn't want a bunch of people sending me angry emails because they had to go get stitches or whatever. Or, they broke the board or anything like that. So that idea didn't really work out. I ended up going with the Raspberry Pi Zeros, the Ws, so that they had the Bluetooth functionality. Now, I had thought at the time, I'm like, well, in a year or so, we did this earlier because, we were having a kid, so we were trying to plan in advance. I was like, in a year or so, they should be easy to get, and people won't be charging ridiculous amounts for them still or anything. I'm apparently not the best person at predicting the future. But, we went with that. It's something simple and basic, and, you can use it for something else if you need to. In terms of the hardware, if you don't want to use the Bluetooth functionality, you can get away with not doing that. Eventually, if there was enough interest, I was going to try to do some stupid things with the Bluetooth, but it was just basically based on what type of interest and feedback we get there. Right now, it's just the insecure auto pairing script where it'll accept any connection. You'd want to get like an SD card. 8 gigs should be more than what you would need. You'd want to get like a tactile or a momentary push button. Almost any buttons you see, unless they say on-off switches, that's what they're going to be. Adafruit, you can find them under this listing. You can find them on Amazon. Most of the things like that you can get. Regular jumper wires, and then a power source of some sort. Ideally, you want to be doing this on a separate router, since again, it's inherently insecure. You don't want to put that on like all your home stuff, and then end up having somebody hack you because of that. But it's something we came up with when we were doing all our IoT stuff, that it's just a good idea to test devices that you're not sure how secure they are on something that's not attached to your home stuff. In terms of the hardware stuff, you download the image, copy it to the SD card, and then put it together. Now, on these, I just got these breadboard cases. They sell them on Adafruit. It's c4labs.net. They have them on Amazon, some other vendors. You can also go make weird cases. No, it's ABS plastic. So same thing basically, but there's when I have it hooked up, the light comes on. It's an arcade button.
Yeah, this one's battery, I think, out.
Actually, I put the Pi in there, so there's nothing in there right now. But and then you would just want to test it to verify it worked. Yeah, I tried having somebody connect to one of those, and it was enough of a challenge for them that I wanted to try and make it easier. That was where the comment she made earlier about wiggling the wires came from, because that's literally what needed to be done to make it work. In terms of the hardware layout, I did lay some of the stuff out a little weird, but I did it for specific reasons. I used those 2 pin slots for the button input and for the ground, because if you're going to do an interface with it, you're going to use the ports that are directly next to it. So that way you don't have to look up the reference card every single time you want to use the GPIO interface. I'm lazy, so I try to put things in a way that everything I'm going to stick in there is next to something that's already there. In terms of setting up the web application, oh, sorry.
You can talk about it if you want. I don't care. Just, yeah, you want Java 8, Apache Tomcat, and Maven for the web app.
Unless you're using like one of the Raspbian Lite distributions, you shouldn't have to worry about any of the JDK stuff. It should already be baked in.
This is for running the server,
Yeah.
not the Raspberry Pi.
Oh. Yeah,
So, okay, so the code's on GitHub. There'll be a web page that has the link. There's a service that I run with Maven Jetty Run. And then I have the web application, which I normally just put on port 80. by editing the server XML and just build it up with the Maven Clean package. There's a configuration file you might want to change, and then just start Tomcat. Easy. And that's the one configuration file. Okay. Which has an upload directory and the URL of where the other service is. For the mobile application, you can download the APK from the website. And then if you need to change some settings, I'm advising you to reverse engineer it. It's really easy to see where the settings are stored.
We won't sue you.
Yeah, and if you get really stuck, we can tell you. All right, now testing an IoT device.
And yeah, that was actually one of the other limitations that we came up with. Was we were originally thinking about hosting the service ourselves until we looked at how much it would cost. So sorry about that.
And also, people don't like you hosting services that you are asking other people to hack, apparently.
For some reason. But anyhow, in terms of just regular IoT device testing, thing I just brought up earlier about, you want to have a segregated test network. You don't want to have like your family photos or your personal information on something that's attached to something that's hackable.
Or your IoT water bottle that tells you when you're thirsty. You want to keep those separate so nobody hacks it.
You wouldn't let me buy that. In terms of the attacks, objectively, I mean, this is our subjective opinion is that it's easier to do some of these things if you sort of have a goal of what you're trying to do in the first place. I mean, you can just sort of look for random things to do, but you'll sort of it's like you'll end up chasing down a bunch of rabbit holes. Whereas if you sort of have I want to do X, go about that. But in some cases, it varies from person to person. You might want to actually see what type of flaws you can find before you decide what type of attack you can do. I kind of like to do the opposite, but again, I'm not really the best person at making unquestionable like decisions. You wanted this, or I can do it. But yes, the 4 things you'd want to test, obviously, for any of these IoT devices is going to be the mobile apps for it, the network, and then, of course, the web apps and the API, and then the hardware itself. In terms of a lot of the hardware, if you do want to hardware hack a lot of these, a lot of them have UART ports that are very accessible if you open up the case. And they're also usually helpfully labeled. The biggest things that I've seen people who are just starting out have problems on is that there's you're going to have 3 or 4 wires connected to it. Usually it's going to be almost always 3. One's going to be your ground, one is going to be your transmit, and one's going to be your receive. You want to switch the receive on the one device to the transmit on the computer. A lot of people will put the receive on both ends, and if you think about it for a second, it's obvious why that won't work, but it's just something that people do because, again, they get kind of stressed out and worried that they're not going to do the right thing. But you want to go to the mobile app methodology?
All right, so the mobile app methodology, and I had a meeting about a week ago at work, which makes me take this a little differently. I used to make some assumptions that everyone knew certain things about this, but there was a whole meeting at work because of this great security thing with our mobile app. And the problem was somebody had just realized you could decompile Java code and people could see it. And I was just like, yeah? What's the problem? Yeah, I knew that. I mean, so yes. So maybe people do not know everything, but so yeah, you basically for Android and iOS, you just want to do your static testing, your dynamic testing, and your network testing. Obviously, it's a little different for each. Android, you decompile, as I said. iOS, you get your bitcode, run it through and look at it through IDA if you want. Android, you can do a lot of cool things with ADB. iOS, you use Cycrypt. Yeah, of course, you need your iPhone that you've jailbroken, which is illegal in some countries. I always use Burp Suite for the network testing. Obviously, on a Mac, if this is one of those things that can take a couple hours if you've never done it before. If ADB can't find your device, try a powered USB hub. And if you're having trouble connecting Burp Suite to an Android emulator, setting up the APN using 10.0.2.2, which is the special address representing the local host of the machine, does seem to help.
Now, in terms for your network methodology, it's fairly straightforward. You want to enumerate your internal network so you know where everything is. Tools that you would generally use for that, I mean, there are other things you can use. I'm just suggesting these would be like a Wireshark or AirCrack. I mean, there are other ways. There are a lot of ways to do some of these things, so do whatever works best for you. And I just went. I'm on the web application methodology. Okay. Well. But yeah, I mean, same thing you would do is just like any sort of penetration testing for an application. You go through the authentication, the authorization, your session management, look for injections, client-side codes, etc. And again, oh, you want to take the picture? I was making sure you were done before I forwarded it. But these should also be on the video. They'll probably be up about 5 minutes after we talk, since they're pretty prompt about that. But API, again, it's the same thing, except there's not an actually app. You know, there's no actual app there. You want to identify what it is and, you know, enumerate your calls, check for your common problems. Again, I mean, that's stuff that if you start getting into this, this is going to be pretty straightforward. In terms of the hardware methodology, take it apart and look at it. In some things, you'll find boards that are reused in multiple devices, especially cheaper ones. In some cases, you know, I mean, I've only managed to break one thing so far, so it's not as challenging as you would think it would be. And there was a lot of smoke. It was pretty cool. But if you're worried about that, you can always get multiple devices. If you're worried, you know, like if it's something that's absolutely critical, so you don't, if you host something, you're not completely stuck. Like again, you'd want to look for those debug UART ports. They're usually labeled. You might have to get a magnifying glass or something because the text can sometimes be small. Look at how the firmware updates on the device, because depending on what it's doing, you might be able to actually access that through the hardware. Also verify if there's integrity checking of any sort or any sort of signing on there, because, you know, some jerk might upload their own better version. For what you'd want to do for interfacing hardware, you want to get something that's called a USB to TTL. It's a serial cord for debugging. There are two main manufacturers of this. They're both the same thing. I don't know why they use different terminologies for some of this, but there's a PL2303, which was originally made by a company named Prolific. I have no idea why other companies make them now. I'm assuming there's a patent issue of some sort. But what happens is there's a wide variety of manufacturers of them, and they're of varying degrees of quality, so I would generally urge people to kind of avoid them because they may or may not, whatever you buy may or may not work correctly. The other one is the FTDI, which is it's the name of a company. I can't recall what the exact acronym is. The 232, and then they have like a series of them. There's like a RL, RS, a Q. But 2302 is just a serial communications protocol. But usually a lot of those are going to be sold in two flavors. There's going to be a 4-wire one and a 6-wire one. You can do more things with the 6 than you can the 4, particularly if you're working with Arduinos or you know, other sorts of boards, and they're usually about the same price. So I would just recommend that you go ahead and get that one. Tip there is that some of the chips have selectors to do 5 volts and 3.3 volts. You do not want to send 5 volts through a logic circuit. You don't want to send 5 volts through logic on a Raspberry Pi. It'll almost certainly destroy it. They say it may damage the device. If I set you on fire, it may be unpleasant. But yes, also there's going to be a red cord on there. That is your power. If you have a 6 cord, you can power the device through the chip. Again, don't put that where you're not, if you're not sure it's supposed to go there, I'd probably not put it there. And yes, there will be a pop and smoke. It actually does happen. Also, the device will not boot. Now, if you're, in some cases, like when you look at these UART ports, there might not actually be a port that you can just connect to. So you solder a connector on there. Best tip I can give you on that. If you decide that you want to go on image search, like I want to learn how to solder, I'm going to go look this up on Google Images. There is apparently an entire stock industry of people holding soldering irons wrong. If you don't know better, that would hurt an awful lot. And also, soldering is a skill like painting or drawing. I've been frequently comparing it to. Just because you know what you want to do with your hands doesn't mean you're going to do it right the first time. So if it's something that's really important, buy a cheap soldering kit first. They sell several of them that usually have like LEDs or something like that, so you can verify that you actually did good on it. You know, you don't want to buy a multiple $100 device for the first thing you're going to try to solder, because you're just asking for trouble at that point. And now we're ready for the demo. Is that shut down? Awesome. So is there a volunteer that wants to do connection for this? Anybody? Come on. We've got it to work every time. Come on. All right. I'm going to... I have to have it plugged into my computer. Oh, yeah, okay. So, come on up here. Yeah.
There isn't much space up here either, so sorry about
All right. And actually, do I need your phone? I need your phone so I can do the camera, don't I? Yes.
Yeah, I really want to display it to the camera.
That's fine. I got another cord. So you're going to have to unlock this.
Yes, I will. I have biometrics on this one so that I don't accidentally show people my password again. Yay.
All right. Now, this is pretty basic. What's your name?
My name's Matt.
Matt?
Yep.
All right. But yes, what you're wanting to do is, this is going to be just like the regular 3-wire connection I was telling you about. You're going to, if there's 3 wires, you know what they are. One's going to be your ground. All right. One's going to be the ground, one is going to be your transmit, and one's going to be your receive. All right, where's the visor thing? You can get that going. Uh-oh. But I have to keep it this. So if you left it, that's what happened. I'll show you all with the camera in a second here. Sorry. Unless, is there a camera over? Should I just bring it over to the camera there? Would that be easier for people to see at home or whatever?
No.
Tiny chips.
Yeah.
That's fine. We'll try to do it this way. Okay. If you move your camera, is it going to screw anything up? We'll just do it this way.
Yeah, this is coming up, so I'll be able to use the camera on the phone to hopefully show something. It'll be,
Cancel.
yeah.
You.
Yeah, I know, I went right past it.
All right. Here, I'm just going to explain this before I set you loose. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. But this is the FTDI. It's a 232 RL. Those are all the ones I get. But if you look on one side, they label what all the connectors are for. So you have your ground, your transmits, etc. I had already pre-done this for him, so we'll just do that. And then on this, can you hold this for a second? On this, we have just your regular 40-pin GPIO. And that's how we're going to do this. You see where it has the 14 ground? It's wonderful having bad eyesight. All right, so blue is just like this. Oh, sorry, that one. So you got like where your ground.
Yep. Good. I do it.
Turn it.
It's on the far side, right?
Yeah. I only got so many hands.
So right here.
Yeah, you want the blue to go into the ground.
The blue is the ground. The ground
See
is
where it says
blue.
ground that's labeled? It should be next to these two I put in.
Yeah, I think it's really impossible to make this
That
an
one
easy
right
to
there.
see thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pre-film something because yeah, it just makes it too hard for people to see.
Right here.
Yep. You
Set
just
it.
push that in.
That was it.
Mm-hmm. That is
Well, that's
that is the hardware part of this. Yeah.
And then you're gonna
What we're gonna do is we're gonna hook this up to a debugger. Don't you want to bask in your victory?
type in the command, you can. You'll understand.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, because it's actually kind of stressful to get up in front of a bunch of people and do stuff like this. But yeah, I'm just running this through a Kali VM here, and But yes, usually I use Minicom to do this as a terminal emulator. There's a help on there if you run into anything. But the main thing is that you want to make sure your device speed's correct and where your USB is. I already knew this, but D is for your device. O is for not initializing modems.
And the B is your...
And B is your baud rate. So once we do this, notice the device is still powered off. I just put the power in there. We'll give it a minute to boot up here. Oh, I plugged in the wrong one. Or the connector fell out. The connector fell out. Damn it. I just undid all of his hard work. Now, what'll happen with this? You'll get input of some sort. If it's a bunch of random symbols, in a lot of cases, it means you might have hooked up the receive to the receive, or that you had the baud speed set wrong. All right, make sure I'm connected in the VM here. All right, good. Give that a moment to boot up here. Sorry about that, guys. Oh, well, you'll just see that it establishes a connection. Now, you'll get some sort of, you'll almost always get something, even if you're completely screwed it up. If it's actually readable, you know you did it right. You'll get a bunch of like random ASCII characters.
Have a helper login.
See, you did it correctly, Matt. But what you can do is you can pipe, like if you wanted to try a brute force, you can pipe that to through a Minicom. So there are actually attack vectors that this opens up. And again, I mean at a basic level, we successfully interface the device through hardware means. So I think that is about all that we have here. Let me see what else we got. Just our contact info here.
And time for questions.
And we came 2 minutes under, so we actually did really good on the time.
Let me put up the contact information. Yeah, I think it's about to display. It's there. I have Twitter. He hates Twitter, won't use it. Nobody had insecuredevices.com, which I thought was astonishing, so I grabbed it. And there will be a web page if you go there that has links to GitHub, a place to download the APK, although I noticed there was a extra slash in the link this morning, and so it doesn't work unless you correct that. Sorry. I'm going to fix that, but if you get it immediately. And it has the images and I think these slides.
Yeah, now in terms of things that, like future stuff with this, if there's a lot of interest in it, I'll work on it more. We've got a kid who's almost 2, so I don't actually have a lot of free time for some reason. But if there's a lot of interest in this, one of the reasons why it actually went partially with going through Raspbian was I wanted something that had bloat to it, because I was actually thinking about trying to do a hardware-based CTF at some point. Because again, I really like dumb ideas. But were there any other questions or anything? All right. Well, if you do come up with something later, by all means, send us an email, or if you see us walking around or whatever. Thank you very much for attending. I really appreciate it.